Linus Tech Tips has released the third video for the Linux challenge, so it's time to react to that. And because I got so many great comments from so many people, I decided I'm going to continue to do reaction videos for this series as well as just in general. So if you have any videos you'd like for me to react to, then please send them my way. You can put it in the comments below, or if there's some kind of YouTube issue with links, because there sometimes is, you could do it on the forum. I'll have that linked in the description so you can check that out. And because I'll be doing more reaction videos, I decided to do a little bit of some fancification, is that a word? Not really, probably not, to this particular series, so I can have some animations and effects going back and forth to different scenes, and I can switch faster, because if I'm going to do reaction videos more often, I might as well have a structure set up in OBS to do it. So for example, I have this full screen video that you see right here, and also I've created this thing where it does this animation that you just saw into a circular video webcam for me, and then also it can move in different corners. Now this is not important to show you in the video, but I just really like the fact that it has that, because, well, it took a little while to make this. I think it's pretty cool. So
anything is easy if you know exactly what you're doing. But by the same token, anything can be difficult or even impossible if you lack the requisite skills, resources, or knowledge.
Totally agree with that. Actually, two things I wanted to say. First of all, I do agree with this statement, because there's a lot of people who say something is easy in technology because they are just familiar with it, and that's not really the definition of easy. That also applies to simple. I'll see people say something is simple, and that's not really. What they mean by simple is usually minimal, and what they mean by easy is usually efficient. So that's just my interpretation. I mean, I could be wrong about what people actually mean, but that's what it seems like when I have conversations with people who do say it that way. But another thing I wanted to reference on this particular segment, because I know we're already like just a few seconds in, but I already have a couple things to say. Because I do video editing and I do transitions and animations and stuff like that for my videos, I just have to say, there's a part where he slaps the text down and it goes away with the movement, and I just gotta say, well done to the editor who did this.
But by the same token,
it's pretty good. I like it. I like it.
That's the basic premise of this video, where Linus and I, now 3 weeks into daily driving some form of Linux on our personal gaming machines, will change the gears and attempt to complete 12 simple tasks.
Simple. We'll see if it's simple or not, I guess.
While the main idea behind the Linux Daily Driver Challenge is to evaluate the Linux experience from a gamer's perspective, even the most ardent gamer will occasionally want to do other things on their PC, like print out a document or watch a video. And those things need to not only be possible, but also fast and painless enough that they aren't immediately prompted to run back to Windows.
Okay, real quick. You're saying it's got to be painless enough, but there is no such thing as a pain-free experience for printing on Windows. That's not really something that's even a thing to run back to. Like run back to pain, that's what that would be. Linux printing is ridiculously good. I mentioned that on a previous video that I reacted to, where in most cases you can just plug in the printer and it works. I just wanted to make that clear. There are some things in Windows that are not simple. Actually, I think there's a lot of things in Windows that are not simple.
So with that in mind, we've set a time limit for each of our tasks of 15 minutes.
Okay.
Compared to gaming, basic office work is much more mature on Linux. And for anything that's not straightforward, there's a good chance that you can find a web app to fill the gap. These days, everything from word processing to basic video editing or even creating 3D mockups can all be done in a browser, and often for free.
That's true in a lot of ways. There's a lot of things you can do in a web app. I actually think that there are some things that are in the web app that are better in some cases than other applications. Like, for example, I use Photopea, and it is a fantastic web app. It's essentially a Photoshop alternative, and it can do probably about 70% of what Photoshop can do. And for being a web app, that is ridiculously impressive. We talked about it on an episode of Destination Linux. I did it as an app pick. If you want to learn more about that, I'll have that linked in the description, as well as a link to Photopea, because it is awesome. It's basically what I use day to day when I'm doing non-print work. When I'm doing print work, well, that requires a different tool.
Luke and I agreed ahead of time that using a VM that's running paid, non-open source software kind of violates the spirit of the challenge here, even if it is technically within bounds.
I think that it's fair enough to say that a VM running Windows would sort of violate the essence of it, I guess. But I do want to say that people should not like be anti the proprietary aspect. I am 100% on the open source side, but also promoting an advocate of open source. Of course, I even call myself the open sorcerer, which is a silly term, I know, but it's fun. So I do it. So I'm a huge proponent of open source. But to say that like this was kind of the way Linus phrased it is implying that in order to use Linux, you would need to shy away from proprietary. And I know he's talking about more on the VM side of things, but I think that there is a reputation that people have when they see Linux and they see so much people promoting Linux and open source together that they think that there's a mutually exclusive thing between proprietary and Linux. You can use proprietary software if you want to. There are proprietary pieces of software that I use as well on my system for my workflow. So if you have some software that you want to use that's proprietary, go ahead and do it. Now, of course, if you can use an open source alternative just as well, and it works for everything you need it to do, then absolutely do that. That is what I would recommend. That's what I do. But if it's good and it lets you get the work done, then go ahead and use it. That's what I'm saying. So I just want to make it clear that not everybody who's in the advocacy of open source is a person who is all or nothing. There are some times where proprietary software, while not ideal, could be the better option.
Here are the challenges you must surmount in whatever order you please. Cut and paste a file from OneDrive. Oh, man, I was expecting them to come up with some stuff that's really challenging. So just like in Windows, Control X, and I will paste it to my Kingston thumb drive. It is done. 3.9 gigs.
Okay, so I just noticed the timestamp says that it like implies that the file was transferred of 3.9 gigs from one drive to another in 4 or 5 seconds. I'm going to bet this is not going to work.
Playing it back. Yes, I do appreciate the irony of trying to play success.mkv and having it just be a black screen.
Okay, that is pretty funny, but there was not enough time for that file to actually be transferred. So that's a thing that happens in Linux where the file is in process, but the file that it's going to be is kind of put there in like a temporary state. So it essentially creates the file and then starts putting the data in. So it looks like the file's there, but it's not actually there. I'm not sure if does Windows just wait to show you the file until it's done? Because I'm not sure if that's, I honestly don't know if that's how it works. But if that's how it works, I mean, that might be why he made that assumption that it was already done.
I'm going to cut this, and I'm going to paste this.
Yes.
Done.
Do a text file. That is a much faster way of doing it.
Okay. Step 1 complete.
This is really annoying. macOS does this too. There's no refresh button in Dolphin, so you can't force it to refresh. And I know what the philosophy is. The philosophy is you're not supposed to need to refresh. Well, sometimes I do! So you need to have the button. Sorry, it's just I'm still angry about this from like 7 or 8 years ago or whenever I did my macOS daily driver challenge.
Well, a little bit of an overreaction right there, but I do want to say that it is possible to do it in Dolphin. You can refresh by using the shortcut, which is the same shortcut that you see in browsers like Firefox, which is F5. There's some people also know of Control R. That one I don't think works, but F5 does work. So if you hit that on your keyboard, it will do a refresh. Now, it is also inside of Dolphin, but it's kind of hard to find where it is because by default, Linus is right, it's not there by default. I didn't think about it needing to be there. I always used the shortcut because I was just used to doing it in my browser, and then one day I decided to do it in my file manager for no apparent reason, and it worked. But if you want to do it, actually, let's just jump into Dolphin and I'll show you how to do it. Okay, now we're in Dolphin, and as you can see, I got some files in my desktop folder just as an example. And if you want to check out any of these podcasts that I'm displaying, or go to thedailyinstore.com or tuxdigital.com, these are options just to Put that out there. Now, if you wanted to right click, you would not see a refresh button here. Linus is correct about this. There's also no button here anywhere to refresh, but if you were to do F5, like I said, you'll see it does a refresh. So it is totally possible to customize the toolbar. You can customize pretty much everything in Plasma, which is one of the reasons I love it. But by default, you're right. There's no refresh button, but you can add one. So if you go up to the hamburger menu, just right click the menu and you'll see that there's a configure toolbars button. You click that and then you go into here for the filter, refresh. There you go. Now you can add that over, click apply, and you'll see refresh button. Now, of course, you can also choose to like move this up wherever you want. And if you don't like it in that particular position and that kind of thing. So you can get a refresh button that way.
I am grabbing a smaller file. Trying to install TeamViewer.txt. I'm cutting.
Yes,
Pasting.
smaller file.
Success. Challenge 2, digitally sign this PDF. I have not specifically installed any kind of PDF reader, so this is the default digitally sign. Oh, this is looking promising. Oh, draw a rectangle to indicate the signature field. Okay. The signature this size is too small to read. No, I'm just gonna sign it. There are no available signing certificates. Okay. Man, I thought I was gonna be done this in like 1 minute.
I'm assuming I'm not going to be able to sign it because I'm assuming this is just a reader.
That is just a reader.
Is there something on here? Document viewer. I know what I use on Windows for this is Sejda. Okay, Sejda. I'm gonna
Never heard of this.
download Sejda just in case this PDF mod thing doesn't work. Okay, this is what I use on Windows. So let's give this a shot. New signature. Save. Let me just verify that worked. Mod, PDF to sign, signed, done.
That's interesting. I've never heard of that particular application. I mean, it's really cool that it has a Linux option. I know that there are other ways to do it. Now, there's a couple options that are open source tools. For example, LibreOffice Draw could do it, and also Zernal++. Zernal spelled with an X.
What just happened? Did that just copy to the folder? Why would it do that? I dragged this onto a folder, but because Arc is some completely separate application that doesn't integrate properly with Dolphin, it just dumps it into the folder instead of specifically on the folder I'm dragging it to. So I have to open this folder, then copy it.
I've never tried personally to move files out of an archive that way, like by opening the archive and then pulling the files in, because I've never tried to do that, because you just right click the file and extract the archive right from the context menu. And you can also, there's a cool thing inside of Plasma, or more specifically Dolphin, where you can right click and it'll show you, actually, I still have Dolphin up. I'm going to show you real quick. First I'll have to create an archive file because I don't have an archive file here. So I'm just going to copy all of these, go into compress and just do compress zip. Sure, why not? Doesn't really matter. Now you'll see that this says desktop. Now, what's cool is that when you right click, you can go to extract and you have 3 options. There's extract here, extract to, where it will be the option to choose what you want, and then extract here, auto detect subfolder. This is the most powerful feature for an extraction thing. So what it does is when you click this, it will actually create a folder, whatever the name of the archive is, and create a folder for you and automatically organize it for you. That way that Linus was trying to do, I've never tried that before. And I wonder, I'm going to try it now. Oh, I need to make another folder. Folder, test, select these. It did do it. What? Okay. Folder, did it work? It's empty. All right. It's in there. So it did work. I don't know what to tell you, Linus.
Night Zone with, sorry, what is this? K font view? Oh, install. Do you want to install the fonts for personal use system-wide? System-wide. Yes! I'm going to change my user interface to it.
Plasma's way of installing fonts is very easy. I do love that.
Print the Word doc. Okay, here's my Word document.
This should be easy for both of them.
Yeah, theoretically. I haven't done any setup for a printer.
That sounded like he was responding to my statement. That's a little freaky.
But this looks like a printer. Let's do it. I'll be back. That's in my girlfriend's office. We'll see what's gonna happen. That was probably the easiest and best printing experience I've pretty much ever had. I didn't detect that printer. I didn't install that printer. I didn't do anything. I know from previously using Mint, I've seen the pop-up in the top right-hand corner come up being like, this printer has connected. But I never did anything for it, and yeah.
Yep.
Okay, hold on. Whoa, what was that? Printer HP Device Manager. What is this? Do I even have an HP printer? It's a Samsung. That's gonna be. Whoa.
What is that font?
Are you
man?
kidding me? There it is. Samsung CLP 310 series. Okay. Wait. It found a driver! This printer is actually a pain in the butt to get working on Windows because I think the last time it got a driver was either Vista or Windows 7. I actually have it saved to a folder on my server because there's no other place that I can find it, or I can, but it's a real chore. You have to like extract it from some other thing. Like it's a very giant pain in the butt. This just worked as far as I can tell, but until I actually see the page, I'm not ready to believe it.
I'm confident it'll work.
Waiting for printer. Let's go, Andy. Let's go, Andy.
If it
The light's flashing. It's flashing. Come on, CLP. Yeah!
Nice.
I was gonna say I've never been so happy to see a page printed out of a printer, but actually getting something to print is one of those things that pretty much every time you need to do it, it's like kind of urgent. No, I've been through this a lot.
It's funny because I one of the things that I like to tell people about it is that they'll say that their hardware doesn't work. Most printers work just fine in Linux, and it works so easily. That's one of the coolest things about the hardware support is that it's built into the kernel. So if it supports the hardware, it supports it automatically most of the time. But I actually had a recent experience just like a couple of weeks ago. I went to someone's office and they asked me if I could help them with their printer. And then when I went to go help them with their printer, I realized, nope. It has been too long for me to help you with this printer thing because I haven't had to deal with fixing my printers in like a decade. And so, sorry, but no, I can't.
Challenge number 6, compress and send all the files on this drive.
Sure.
Okay, here as .zip. Why is it .zip.uqjq?
Okay, so I'm looking in this listing of files. It says a video.mp4, and that's 3 gigs. That compression is not going to be super fast. And it says you only have 15 minutes. It's going to cut it close, but especially if you have to send it, because if you have to compress it and send it, it depends on your internet speed. It depends on the compression speed. It depends on what service you're using to do the transfer. This is going to be interesting.
Why would it put that there? Goodbye.
Because that's a temporary file name. So what it's doing right there is it's creating a temporary file that is, it's kind of like if you download something, it says the name of the file .part or something like that, where it's the file's not finished yet. It just has an indicator. That's kind of like an indicator to tell you that it's not finished yet. Although it's not necessarily clear that that's what that means. So, fair enough to Linus that he didn't know what that meant. But now you do.
Failed to open archive, not a zip archive. It's a UQJQFU. Nope, it just is broken. Perfect.
We're going to compress to a zip right here, create. Let's check top. Gonna make sure things are happening. 7-zip is attempting to use 100% of my CPU. So things are happening.
Holy crap, Andy, you know what? I think I just fell for the same thing that I said I wouldn't fall for again. Compress here as .zip. It was doing it down here, and I didn't notice. So I guess the 6 characters or whatever here is just random gibberish while it's a temporary file.
Yep.
I should change this font back. I like it, let's do it. Are these files gonna compress at some point? Dolphin, you're embarrassing yourself. Okay, let's try and do it in...
You have a 3 gig
I forget
video.
what this one is called, it doesn't matter. Are you kidding me? Am I gonna fail to zip a file?
This is now uploading. I was kind of hoping that I was going to be able to do every single task in under 15 minutes, The fonts task really slowed me down because I didn't realize the font wasn't called a font. And then this one is slowing me down because it just took a long time to compress, and now it's taking a long time to upload. But other than that, these have all been very easy so far.
And this one is clearly stalled. Hold on. Maybe
it is taking
P-Zip's
a
got
while.
me still. I'm good. The first one I did in Dolphin, it's done, I think.
Nice.
Wait. No, I didn't get the point. I'm supposed to send them. Maybe I can weasel my way out of this a little.
I mean,
What do you mean by compress and send?
Could that been email it or something?
Well, I mean, there's a 3 GB file in it, so emailing
you're not going to be able to email that.
it's not really practical.
Then just don't include that video.
Oh, well,
That would have made it take maybe 45 seconds.
I mean, I already zipped the whole thing, including the video. Because, like, okay, I'm giving myself the points. I could have emailed this to someone. I think that's fine.
Okay.
All right.
I think that's totally fair because, I mean, Linus could have easily gotten that done within less than a minute if that video was not included. And with that video included, I'm going to be shocked if Luke is able to do it in that period of time. And if he can, it's going to be like right at the edge, maybe 30-second difference or something, or maybe even less. I don't know. It's going to be very close because, at least I'm going to guess, because you're doing a process that's going to take a while for both pieces, the compression and the upload and all that. So I don't know. I think that's totally fair to give them a point, especially if when James says you could just not do the video. It's like, well, in that case, it would have been very easy. All right, let's see how Luke gets on with this particular one.
Insert files using Drive. Linux challenge. Okay. One person view, send. Got it.
Oh,
This is really
let's go back. This
One person
completed.
view, send. Got it.
Oh, look at that. Okay, you can't really see it very well on the screen, but I'm going to go ahead and try to move this, make it look better. Okay, so it looks like I nailed it. Okay, close. I said 30 seconds. It was 28 seconds. That's pretty close. Just like Linus, I'm going to give myself a point for that.
This is really cool. If I search for snipping tool, it actually is like, haha, we don't have that. But we do have Spectacle, which is a pretty cool
I didn't know that.
little screenshotting tool.
That's cool.
So you just click take a new screenshot, and then
Real quick, I knew it had Spectacle. I didn't know you could search for snipping tool and it would do that. I'm going to try that myself because I do have Plasma. Snipping tool. It does. You just type in snipping and it totally does. That's cool. Or just snip. Well, there you go. Learn something new. That is a very good idea. Whoever decided to do that, well done.
now I have to make a shortcut. Oh man, I got this too. Oh, no, you can't right click it to where you want it and make a shortcut. So no, I will find another way to do that.
Didn't know people
Link
did
to
that.
file or directory. Yes, this is a much better way of doing this. Haha, name for new link. Okay, can I copy the location? Yes, I can. Done.
Now, I wanted to make a quick comment on this one because Linus seemed a little bit snarky on this, but I think it might be a factor of the fact there's a time limit and you're trying to do it as fast as possible and that sort of thing. So you're not fully thinking about like, what are the other options? So Linus right-clicked and tried to move it and it didn't work. So he just assumed that you couldn't do that in an easier fashion. So he started to doing it in a more, difficult fashion. And then he made a comment about, yeah, this is easier. Well, Linus, just real quick, what I'd like to tell you is that you can do it easier. Left click instead of right click. Let me show you in Dolphin. Now that we're back in Dolphin, let's create a shortcut. Since we're already on the desktop, we can't drag some of the desktop. So let's go into this folder. We'll grab Hardware Addicts image and we'll just left click, let go. And then you'll get the options for move, copy, link. So the link for the shortcut, we're just going to go ahead and click the link here and it will create that shortcut for us. And that's it. Also, just real quick, you can go into here, let go as well, and choose set image, and it'll change whatever image you drag will become your desktop background, which is pretty cool.
I can hold the Shift and Control keys, highlighting and dragging a file or folder. Okay.
Controls-
Seems a little weird.
I mean, that's certainly not intuitive for sure. When you do, you hold Shift and Control together, that creates a shortcut /link. If you hold just Control down and move it with your mouse and drag it to your desktop, then that will create a copy. And if you hold Shift down, it will move the file. So that's just a way of doing a quick action. Although the Control Shift together is definitely not an intuitive. Actually, none of those are intuitive, really. But they're nice when you get used to doing them. So there's that. But I do like the fact in Plasma, if you don't activate one of those shortcuts, it will just ask you what you want to do, which I think that's the better option rather than just assuming something, because it will show you all the things you could do when you try to do it that way.
Let's make a shortcut of a video. Yeah, it's a link. It's a shortcut. Nice.
Connect to a network share. This is actually crazy easy because while I am using Samba on my Linux NAS, it's a Linux NAS. So yeah, I can just add a shortcut to this right here. See? I'm going to call that good enough. So now, every time I open up Dolphin, I just click Linus, and it will go to my share.
Yeah, I think that's what you would want to do anyway, because that's what I do with my network share. You would see, let's go back to Dolphin, shall we? Now that we're back in Dolphin, you can see right here on the left side, it says NAS. So that's where I put my network share stuff. And exact same thing, just drag and drop it over there. Super easy.
So in the end, that took me less than 40 minutes in total. The majority of that time was waiting for a file to compress, waiting for a file to upload, waiting for a response from the taskmaster himself, etc., not doing the actual tasks. I think that would have taken me a very similar amount of time in Windows. Actually, the print a file portion probably went better than it would have on Windows, to be completely honest. So
Exactly.
yeah, overall, no problem. Really easy.
Compressing in files failed, copying failed. Yeah, thanks a lot, Dolphin. You suck.
Okay, so I'm going to have to completely disagree with that statement. I think Dolphin is a fantastic file manager. It's my favorite file manager on Linux because it is so powerful and so featureful. It can do a ton of cool stuff. Dolphin isn't the most intuitive file manager, but I do think it is the best. Now, for just a quick example, let's go back to Dolphin. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Let's move on.
Set up Discord app to open on startup. I think it might just do that by default. Hey, okay. Apparently I had already configured this, so another point for Linus. Other than digitally signing my PDF, I managed to complete all of my possible challenges. But that doesn't mean that the road to get here was as painless as what you just saw.
I've had a very frustrating issue where any amount of Windows movement, especially if I dare to have an even low performance game like FTL running, will be very laggy. I've had a few fixes suggested to me that maybe helped a little bit, I can't really tell. None of them have fully solved the problem. I could distro hop and try something else, but I'm hesitant to do that even if it would solve the problem, as that means a lot of additional work just to get caught up to where I am now, and it's possible other things will break anyways.
So I do have some thoughts on this particular issue. First of all, the part with the windows moving around and being a little bit sluggish, that is a problem with Cinnamon, and it has been a known issue for quite a while. I don't remember exactly how long, but it's been quite a while. So this is a issue with the fact that Cinnamon is using a forked version of the window manager from GNOME, because for those who don't know, Cinnamon is a forked version of GNOME. So I'm pretty sure they forked it in the 3.2 days of GNOME, or GNOME 3 specifically, and that was around 2011, early 2012 maybe. I don't remember exactly when they did it, but it's very early on. And because of that, a lot of the benefits that GNOME has inside of their own window manager is not inside of Cinnamon, because they have diverged quite a bit over the years. So the stuff that's being done inside of GNOME to improve its performance and improve various different things hasn't really made its way into Cinnamon. And I'm not sure if it even can at this point based on how much it's diverged over the years. And for example, there is this one piece that I think is why it's happening, is that Cinnamon is a single-threaded desktop environment. And what that means is that there's only one single process thread that is being used to run the desktop environment. So if anything makes it slow down or if it crashes, it's not going to be the best experience depending on the configuration, right? But whereas GNOME, in the latest versions of GNOME 40 and GNOME 41, they have fixed that issue from no longer being a single-threaded process. It's now a dual process. And because it took that long for that single-threaded thing to become a multi-threaded, I think that Cinnamon would need to rebuild or I don't know, restart with GNOME as the base or something. It seems like a big task for them to be able to do that, or they'd have to do it themselves on their own to create a separation of processes. But that's what I think is causing the issue. I don't know for sure, but that is my guess as to why it's happening. But there is a solution. Luke said that he could distro hop. You actually could just change your desktop environment to one of the other two options that Linux Mint has. You could change it to XFCE or Mate, and then you would you would have to reset some stuff because it's a different desktop environment. Not everything's going to be the same, but your installed applications, your files, and all of that sort of stuff would be the same. And you could go back and forth if you wanted to switch DEs, basically log out and log into a different DE. Linux Mint does make Cinnamon, so that's why most people use Cinnamon by default. And I will admit, Cinnamon is a very nice looking DE. I just wish it would have some more performance improvements because I do think Cinnamon is a very nice DE, looks nice. It functions as you would expect the DE to function for people who are coming from Windows and all that benefits. So I do think it's good. But distro hopping is also an option. Now, there are many other great distributions that you could try out.
Meanwhile, on Manjaro KDE, I've had a relatively smooth experience. I do have little complaints, like that the Show Desktop button doesn't actually minimize anything, and as soon as you grab a focus application, everything comes ripping back onto the screen.
Well, the Show Desktop is like, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I thought that before as well. And it has another benefit in the way it does it. What it does is that it kind of moves everything out of the way into like this ether out into the non-existing desktop area, and then you can interact with the desktop. So if you want to open a file or whatever, but once you activate something from the desktop, it will bring everything back as it was. I think that it's a cool approach to doing it, but it might not be ideal for everyone.
If all I needed to do was run a web browser, do some basic word processing, I wouldn't have anything to complain about. Installing and managing applications, on the other hand, has made me wish that my Pop! OS experience hadn't been so discouraging. Manjaro has a graphical package manager called PAMAC that allows applications to be installed in a couple of clicks. But by default, it contains only some of the things I need. It can be unlocked to search for Flatpak, Snap, and AUR packages, which dramatically increases its usefulness. But if this Manjaro developer is to be believed, these non-official sources can result in downtime. And if they do, everything is working as intended.
Okay, so this is something to address. First of all, there's the thing about the applications not having the repos by default. I talked about that in the previous video, the second part. I talked about that because I wanted to express that I think that the third-party repositories should be off by default because they are third-party repositories. Now, I do think Flatpaks have a potential because they don't run as root when you install them and that sort of stuff. There is a lot of potential for Flatpaks. But, if you have the AUR by default, you're introducing some potential issues. One of the issues with the AUR is that it's a user repository, which means that all the packages are done by really anybody. Anybody can submit something. It's not already there. They can submit it, and then people can test it out and review it and leave comments and that sort of thing. But there's not really a vetting process to get into the AUR. Pretty much anyone can do it. Now, the other piece of the issue is that the AUR is made for Arch. It's the Arch user repository. Now, that's not to say that it doesn't work technically speaking, but because the AUR is not meant to be used in anything but Arch, the people who make the package builds are not going to be able to give you support because they're not making it for Manjaro. Now, I do like the AUR. It's very cool, it has a lot of benefits, but it does have some negatives to it as well. Now, this is reason why I think that the AUR should not be installed by default. And also, I think you should make it a little more difficult, or at least when you go to activate it, a little message pop up and asks you,
"Are you sure about that?"
Honestly, some of my dumbest problems have been caused by my default file manager, Dolphin.
is it Dolphin's fault? Or hold on, I'll just let him finish.
Among other things, it does not allow the user to copy anything into a folder that requires administrative privileges, with no obvious way to override it in the GUI.
Okay, that is a thing that Dolphin does. So, okay, that's fair.
And I've run into this twice so far. Adding insult to injury, the community responses to this user who shared my concern that not everyone wants to copy files using the terminal, and that Linux should allow the user to do what they want to do with their computer, were some of the most painfully condescending and stubborn things that I've had the displeasure of reading throughout this challenge.
Okay, so that's fair enough. There is some people who respond to certain things in a negative, toxic way. That happens for sure, and that happens in every community for any type of thing. Windows, it happens there too. There's definitely going to be some people who are that way. But in terms of Dolphin, I agree with the idea that you should be able to have access to do stuff as root if you want to. For example, if you want to modify stuff in your Etsy folder or your /opt folder, things like that, I think that there should be a way to do it, much more easily. But I do think it also should be kind of a little bit of a barrier, but not a huge barrier. So it is kind of fair that Dolphin doesn't have the functionality at all. And it was taken out because of some technical issues. And I don't know if they've addressed those issues in order to bring it back. But I know that people have been talking about bringing it back. I don't know what the status is on that. But, hopefully it does come. Because I do think that the argument of saying, it's my computer, I should be able to do with it what I want, I totally agree with that.
Now, I lost my link to the tweet, unfortunately, but I saw an interesting criticism of this series that basically accused me and Luke of intentionally smearing Linux and its developers because we were going to come into this with a basic Windows gamer perspective and try to do things the way that they do things. Well, newsflash, guys, that's most people. And if you legitimately, in your heart of hearts, want Linux desktop to grow, you need to accommodate those people. So you can sit there and go, am I out of touch? No, it's the users who are wrong. But you're literally a meme at that point. The only question is whether you're self-aware or not.
So I understand this perspective of saying this is where most people are coming from, so it makes sense that you would go in and you would, make your experience comfortable for them as they're transitioning over. But I also see the other perspective of saying this is a completely different operating system. It's not like the Windows users expect Mac to work exactly like Windows. So why does Linux get the bashing for not working like Windows, but Mac gets praise for not working like Windows? You kind of see how that doesn't really work. There is a factor of accommodating Windows users that I think is beneficial, especially with the desktop environments that look similar to Windows. If you're going to look like Windows, you should act like Windows, at least to some degree, at the things that are the most basic of what is expected. Absolutely, those should be addressing or accommodating for the Windows users. But for something like Elementary OS or Pop OS or something else that's not intending to look like Windows at all or doesn't use the same kind of paradigm, then I don't think that there should be any expectation, just like there's no expectation for Mac users or the Mac OS to pretend to be Windows and use their things. So I think there is some validity to it, because if a desktop environment looks like Windows, it kind of needs to at least accommodate a significant portion of the beginner-friendly aspects that they are expecting from a look-alike or a similar paradigm.
I strongly believe that Enthusiast distros for advanced users should stay advanced. There is immense raw potential in an unfettered experience. It is important for new users wishing to eventually achieve mastery of a system, and for current masters of that system to be afforded full control and responsibility in order to maximize their ability to learn, grow, and realize potential.
I agree with that. I mean, the facet of a distribution being made to accommodate Windows users for the beginner switching over, there is a place for a distribution whose focus is solely that. There are distros who do try to do that, have that focus. And also, I do agree that the advanced distributions like Arch Linux or Gentoo should be able to stay advanced, of course. But I don't even think that that's the real crux of the matter. See what I did there? Crux of the matter. Wow. For those who don't get that super nerdy joke, there is actually a Linux distribution called Crux, which is the inspiration of Arch Linux. So, yeah.
That being said, not everything fits under that umbrella. There are distros out there more for gamers or inexperienced users, so for those systems, we really hope that there's a lot of good that can come from us doing this.
I think that there absolutely is a lot of good from it because we've already seen, distributions making changes based on the videos and the experience that Luke and Linus had, and I do think that's very good. And also, there's a lot of benefits to the ecosystem because people are coming in because of the video, and also people are subscribing to my channel because of these videos. So thanks for that.
We also don't want to paint everyone in the Linux community with the same brush.
That's good because not everybody is like that. The vast majority of users in the Linux ecosystem are not remotely like that.
Something that the good eggs in the Linux community need to understand, though, is that you guys are great, and there's lots of you. It's just that it only takes a couple of toxic gatekeepers to turn people off. Like, you gotta remember, it's not always easy for people to reach out and ask for help, and if a literal developer of their distro goes out of their way to type extra unnecessary words to be condescending when they could have just pointed the user to the resources that they needed, it is extremely damaging to the good work that the majority is trying to do.
This is very good points. I completely agree with that. I think that there's a lot of value in this statement of saying that there are some times where you go to a forum and they're just being rude or condescending, and just simply linking the information through like here's where you find the information. Just doing that is enough. Have you ever, like, this is not even just a Linux thing. I think it happens to a lot of different types of internet related things that were especially forums. I will look for something, whether it's Linux or otherwise, and I'll get to a forum and then there's a response that says, "You should do a search. I found you telling me to do a search by searching." That is one of the most worthless responses of every forum. So anybody who has ever done that, please go back to your comments and fix it and put actual information, because people are finding your condescending response as the result of the question. So that was just a quick tangent. I had a conversation with someone in the comments of the last video where they said that, they were, Linux is toxic and the community is terrible and that sort of stuff. And then I, dug in and had a conversation with them to find out they just had a bad experience with a particular distro. And their distro they're currently using doesn't have that problem and their community is great. But that one experience kind of put a bad light on the entire experience that they've had over the course of using Linux, which is another reason why I think the people who are, silent but love it need to speak up, be in forums, be in IRC channels, be in matrix rooms or Telegram groups or stuff like that, and just let people know that there are a lot of us that care and want to help. Or send them my videos. There's another option. You could do that too. Also, like and subscribe and whatnot.
Now, there's a lot more that I could say right now, but I feel like most of it is better suited for the upcoming parts where we focus on game compatibility and performance and our overall conclusions.
Okay, so that is the end of the video, and I think that there are a lot of interesting comments that they shared towards the end about the experience that they've had. And I do think that there are pros and cons, and just like there are pros and cons to using Windows. I mean, people who when they first started this, Windows was going nutty from not being able to act or mess with the start menu and stuff like that. So there's definitely things in computers. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope I provided some information related throughout this video. It took me quite a while to record this because of setting up all the different dolphin sections and whatnot, but I hope you did enjoy it. And if you did, please let me know in the comments below. And also be sure to like that smash button. If you like this reaction video and like for me to do more reaction videos, then be sure to let me know in the comments, and also put a link if you have something specific you want me to react to, or if the link's not working because YouTube, then be sure to check the description. I'll have a link to the DLN forum, and there you can join the forum, send me the link, and also you could just participate in the community, because we have a lot of great people that are in the community of this channel and this network, because this is our goal for the network is to provide great content and also a great community. So I highly suggest checking it out, dlnforum.com. And again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.